Hey guys, it's Alexander Williamson here with The Secret History of Living in Your Aquarium, and we are looking at the lowest tide of the entire year here, and it's actually the lowest tide since 2009, which tied for lowest tide of 1954, I believe, was the last time we had a tide this low. And so we should have all sorts of tide pools opening up and available to us here that normally the tide maybe comes to here, and now it's gone out all the way out over there. This is downtown Edmonds, and it's just a beautiful area. You can see the Olympic Mountains, which have some clouds coming in over them, and you can see the ferry. This is the Edmonds ferry, goes over to Kingston, the peninsula across the way, the Kitsap Peninsula, and right now it is actually stalled for a little while because the tide is so low. They didn't want to risk it, so literally that ferry is sitting there without cars because the tide is so low. So I want to tell you guys a little bit about how the tide works, because I guarantee that you guys have no idea the way the tide really works. Maybe not guarantee, but I'm pretty sure that's the case. Alright everybody, let's get graphic. We're gonna do it on this aquarium because I like it as a surface. So, we've got the Earth, ta-da, round, and we've got North America. Here's Florida, here's Mexico, Yucatan, all that. And Canada, you've got Greenland, you got UK, because you guys watch. We got Europe. I know this isn't to scale. I know this is all messed up. Don't want any critiques on the art. There's Africa, the Mediterranean. Alright, whatever. So, Earth, North Pole, South Pole. Moon, nowhere near this close. To scale, it would be way the heck out there in the other room, probably out of the house. But we've got the moon with the craters on it, the little pepperonis. And then we've got, way over here, we've got the sun. So, what's going on with the tide, and what is it that a lot of folks don't understand? Does it affect all of our fish? Does it pull on the polar molecules of water that are in there? Little beings? Does it cause people to go insane? Does it create lunatics, like the word would suggest? Well, the word luna, or moon, and the word lunatic, or lunacy, those are from the thought that the moon causes that by pulling on it, just like the tides do. Somehow it messes with our brains, right? Well, recently, unfortunately, to those of you who believe that, recently the physicists have figured out that the amount of pull on the polar molecules of water in a average 9-pound human head, with the percentage makeup of water that we are, even though it is a large percentage of water that we are made out of, putting your head on a pillow at night is actually 1 trillion times more force with the gravity here on Earth than is exuded by the moon pulling on your molecules. So if you think about the entire Earth, these are the things that most people don't understand. Everything that you know and love out here's Hawaii. We love Hawaii, right guys? Come on, Penn. We love Hawaii. So everything you know and love is in this outer skin of the Earth. Even all the depths of the ocean, say, let's for the sake of argument say 10 miles deep, even though that's not accurate. I think 32,000 feet is how deep the deepest spot is. But 10 miles, the top 10 miles of the Earth into the atmosphere and into the oceans, everything we know and love that's alive on this planet, that's more shallow than the skin on an apple if it were to scale. So if you were to bite into the Earth, crunch everything we know and love, this is 14,000 plus miles across the Earth, and an apple, you know, the top skin, we're not even 10 miles, everything we love on the outside of the Earth. Okay, back to tides. So, moon's pulling on the Earth, right? We're going to draw these way out of scale because water is a polar molecule, and of course, it all sloshes together. If you've ever been in a bathtub, you know when you slide into the bathtub, it's gonna slosh back and forth. It all sticks together. Well, it does the same thing around the world, and there's several forces at play. The Earth is spinning around the sun. It's also spinning around itself, twirling. And then we've got the moon spinning around us. And here we better draw that sun. So the sun up here. Hello, happy sun. Happy sun rays. Well, pen's not working so well. But the moon pulls on the water and it all sloshes this way. Now, I mean, that slosh of the tides, another thing that we don't understand usually about this is this water around the Earth is not only affected by the moon. In fact, actually, it's affected also by the sun. So the sun also has a tide that's less than the moon, but it's pulling a good 1/3 to 1/4, whereas the moon is pulling something like 3/4 of the gravity that's exerted on there. So when the sun and the moon are in alignment, you've got your high tide over here, you've got your high-low tide created by the sun, right? And then you've got your low tides here, and also the poles have far less of the tides in this configuration we're showing here. I know it's a little hard to see the sun, but it's right here, guys. So when the Earth and the moon get closer at certain times of the year, that pull is greater, and that happens to be around solstice this time of year, this year in fact. So this pull, as great as it may be, here in Seattle, Washington, it is only 11 extra feet of water being sloshed around. It's I mean, as many trillions of gallons as that is around the world moving, it's not a huge difference pole-wise when you think of the mass of the Earth. Water is just very polar. And when you get the moon lined up like this with the sun, when you get a super high or a super low tide, what's going on is the moon has orbited, and the tide that the sun creates, that 1/3 to 1/4 of a tide, it adds and it aligns when the moon is over here. It aligns and doubles, or sometimes triples, depends on where you are, the size of this tide. And now the other tide on the other side, because the world's spinning, so things are getting pulled outward in the way that it spins, it's actually not quite central, it's on an axis, but it's spinning and those bulges are there, whereas the low tides are there. So what happens, where's the lowest tides are when the moon's up here. I know all of a sudden the moon got really close, right guys? But this, whatever, it could be far away. So when the moon's up here and the sun's here, what happens is they pull, this pulls here, this pulls here, but all of a sudden they're pulling opposite ways. They're pulling in 90 degrees from each other instead of 180 degrees, or completely in the same direction like the super high tides here. And so when the moon's up there, that's when we get our lowest tides. Now, one last thing I want to explain is how you can win at Scrabble. So, there's an awesome word, and it means when three celestial bodies are in a line. I learned this from Neil deGrasse Tyson. And it's when the sun, the earth, and the moon are in alignment, or three planets are in alignment. But the word is sis. Oh, now the pen's working. Syzygy. And in lowercase, that's the word with the most letters below the low line, if you have ever learned cursive. But also beyond that, it's got a Z and 3 Ys. What a killer word for Scrabble. Okay, so I think now you guys probably get it. Now the other thing that a lot of people don't seem to understand is that we're turning into these bulges. So as the Earth spins, the tide's not coming in, the continents are slamming into those bulges of water and then rotating out of those bulges of water. One last interesting thing is that due to mollusks, yeah, you know, mollusks like snails, like in our tank, their cousins and the little flat mollusks that evolved in early Earth, this bulge of the tide actually pulls so much on the Earth from the moon pulling on this that it slows down the rotation because it's at a different pace. So we know that like 500 million years ago, it used to be spinning much faster, the Earth did. And so time has actually slowed down for the creatures on Earth. The day has gotten longer because of that. And the moon cycle as well. It's actually changed the speed at which we are moving through space because of that gravity impact. So, how do we know that for sure? Well, we are looking at snails. And it turns out that snails, the rings they have, and other mollusks, chitons, things like that, the little rings they have in their body that are made out of calcium, they shed at certain precise intervals, certain species do in the ocean. And they leave rings, just like the ring on a tree. Well, 500 million years ago, we know that there were more there were more rings in a single lifetime. And we can see 250 million years ago, because these snails haven't changed that much, that there's half as many rings as there are now, between now and then, the difference. And now they're at a certain pace, and they'll continue to slow. So it's another thing that the creatures in our aquarium, specifically if you have a saltwater aquarium, but mollusks in general, have taught us about our geological past, which I think is super cool. And so hopefully explaining these tides, you now understand a few things, not going crazy because of the moon, you can win at Scrabble, and you can thank our snails and their relatives for understanding that the moon has actually slowed the Earth down by dragging on us for all these years. Alright, back to the beach. Check out the cool low tide. Alright, so we've probably looked at my picture of the Earth and whatever the heck is going on in the sun and this. Okay, let's just pretend like Earth's all happy, life's good, moving on. So what else affects the tide? Well, as you can see, the tide's now in. That came quickly. And what increases the tide? Well, fjords, inlets, geology, and structures that can be found all around the world. Where we're looking right now is a trench about 400 or 500 feet deep out in the center. This is basically a mountain range, and we're on a plateau up above it, which is the land. And then there's more mountains, and actually there's more mountains over here, which we'll take a look at after this in just a moment. And there's more mountains down there. So really this is just a shelf or continuation of the mountains. Well, the water then comes through the Puget Sound, hits the back end of it, and it essentially sloshes, like when you slide in a bathtub and the water gets these big old movements that are amplified from just the movement of your body. Well, it's similar to that, and so it creates bigger waves as the Earth is turning into that bulge of water that is around it when the tide is high. So it also can cause boring tides. If it's a large body of water, but there's not any extreme features, or that body of water has some sort of narrow channel. So for instance, the Mediterranean, it all has to get through the mouth of the Mediterranean, and then it's basically a huge lake other than that. So it's not working as a system with the entire world other than right at the mouth of Gibraltar. So in the Black Sea, the Aral Sea, you know, any large body of water you could think of, Lake Victoria, you actually get very weak tides, but it is measurable. And in the Mediterranean, as well as a few other places in the world, you actually see tides of only half a meter or a meter difference from very high to very low. Where I live happens to be that we can see 15 feet from high tide to low tide difference, but it just differs different places. And it's not that that bulge of water is different in each of those places, it's that the geography is either channeling all this water in through these fjords and inlets and valleys, or it's that there are other things going on. Like today, we have beautiful low pressure up in the sky here, where there's no clouds yet, but we have a whole miles and miles of stormy, rainy weather coming in our way. Well, we have a bunch of low pressure, which actually is going to make our high tide higher this afternoon. But literally, if you think about it, you've got hundreds of pounds of air, just air, in a column above you, sitting on you, going up all the way up into the atmosphere, up to space, into where it equals out, being pulled to Earth versus pulled out to space. Right at that point, everything below that point is crushing down on your head, and every square inch, you know, you're gonna feel it. So in the effect of over the entire surface of giant bodies of water, that pushing, that low pressure has some serious impacts, and it really can change the tide by several feet in some extreme conditions. Now, the Bay of Fundy off in Nova Scotia, Canada, it actually has a 58-foot difference from high tide to low tide. It has the most extreme tides in the world, but it's on a fjord. It's notorious for low pressure nor'easter fronts coming through that are very stormy, almost like a hurricane. And also, it's not too far from the open heart of the ocean, rather than being enclosed in any other body, other than the fact that it's in a channel where the water comes spiraling in and gets narrower and narrower into those fjords. But right beyond that is the open ocean, so it's a huge wave bulge of water that hasn't been stopped by putting anything in the way, and it's getting blocked as that water comes into land, but it funnels up into those areas. All right, so here we have another sea anemone, and it has no water to support it. This one down here does, and it's got its tentacles out, which it uses. It puts out these little harpoons to grab things, as you guys probably know. But we've also got one that is just no water to support it. He's so used to being underwater. Most of them are kind of squat like this. This one's actually old enough that it got tall, and while it'll survive and everything, and there's actually some more little like sea fans and soft corals and things. You see another starfish under there. Lots of sea anemones all over here today, and more sea stars under here. So it's pretty cool. There's a big purple sea star like the ones I was mentioning right over here. So we got more of these really cool striped sea anemones. We've got some little chitons or mollusks of some sort, and then we've got the beautiful large purple sea star going on here. So I wanted to show you guys some of the coloration, the color variant. You know, we got kelp in here, seaweed, crab legs, and we've got lots of different shell snails. Everything from you know, conical ones to flat ones to barnacles to mussels to clamshells, all here. But we also, again, we've got these sea anemones that have gotten huge because they're never used to being this far out of the water. It's quite crazy to see them, but you can actually see the red and green color, the pink and electric red or dark red color, and the yellow ones, the orange ones. I mean, there's all sorts of different species and phenotypes, including this soft coral type stuff over here. Now, if you guys know your saltwater stuff, let me know, because I'm not well versed in the saltwater compared to freshwater. But a lot of these sea anemones are having a bit of a rough day, that's for sure. And also, it appears that this soft coral or whatever it is also having a rough day. Alright guys, so we have something really exciting here that's not normally in just the shallow water right here in the harbor, but today I guess it is. And this is a spotted ratfish. They have these ginormous eyes for hunting at night, and they will come into the shallows at night and sort of follow their prey. but they're also a beautiful kind of red color, and they look like a butterfly, or specifically if you've seen freshwater butterfly fish, that's what they really look like. And you can see that the fish that were in the way are all headed as fast as they can, the little fish, away from them. Even though I think they're mostly benthic eaters, I think they hang out just at the bottom most of the time. But it's pretty unusual to see the rat fish or rat shark just in the middle of the day in shallow waters like this, let alone all colored up and just calmly moving rather than hiding somewhere or popping out to grab a bite and then going back into a cave or rocky area like over here. All right, so here we have it again. This is a Pacific Northwest spotted rat fish, and just really cool colors. This is the second one we've seen now, and they move very elegantly, and if you can see their pectoral fins, they're very wide like a butterfly. This very cool fish, and I don't know why they're out right now. Now I hope I'm catching this, but we've actually got two little lumpfish down here. They're kind of hard to see. They're right on the edge of the shadow on these rocks here. There goes one right up there by the piece of kelp. There's kind of a shadow and it's going to go under it. But lumpfish are a really hideous yet adorable fish. They are kind of like a puffer that has been wrinkled like your fingertips when you sit in the bathtub for too long. But they're hanging out just along the little rocky reef here and just deciding if there's anything to eat. I'm just kind of surprised that they're coming out and making an appearance midday. From the pier here you can see the Olympic Mountains, which are the little thumb part of Washington State. If Washington State were a very wide mitten, the thumb part, where the Olympic Peninsula, is where those mountains are. And then if you go north, you hit the San Juan Islands, and Whidbey Island being one of the first islands, and then Camano Island up there beyond it as well, and then the Kitsap Peninsula, and then on clear days like today you can actually see the Olympic Peninsula all the way over there. Is just a foggy blue color, but you can usually see, yeah, you can see the Cascade foothills and some of the Cascades right there beyond the ferry, and they run all the way down this way. Thanks for watching, everybody. I know it was kind of a long one, but I just wanted to share my day at the beach, and not strictly fish related totally, but I thought it was cool how snails have to do with how we know about the tides and the earth being slowed down, and just how it all works, and what effect it may have on our fish that we don't know yet. So rather interesting, and I thank you for joining me for this long journey, and I'll talk to you next time. Thanks. If you could hit that like button, it really helps, and subscribe if you want to see more content like this. Help support the educational content I'm trying to bring to the platform. Have a good one. Bye.